So I made a video yesterday talking about how AI is kind of sucking the joy out of coding, and now there's another model that is supposedly in preview mode called Mythos from Anthropic, which basically blows all the other models out of the water, especially when it comes to security concerns. Like, it's really good at just diving in and finding vulnerabilities or exploits. And in terms of the highlights that they pointed out for how good it is in security, they managed to find a 27-year-old vulnerability in OpenBSD. They also found a 16-year-old vulnerability in FFmpeg, which I guess no one else was able to find. So these models are finding security issues and exploits better than most humans can at this point. And if we go and look at the benchmarks of this model is significantly better than Opus 4.6, which is crazy because when Opus 4.6 came out, I was kind of blown away of how good it was as a model. You do have to kind of babysit it still, like I mentioned, but going from 53% to 77.8%, I mean, that's pretty crazy. I will say that this benchmark is only for Python. I do believe the Software Engineering Benchmark Pro is like only Python, and then down here they have a terminal benchmark, how good it is at terminal tasks. Again, it's like 15% better than Opus. And then you have the multilingual, which is probably what I would be using for TypeScript and web development, and it's at 87, which is still a whole 10 percentage points higher. Now, I don't know how good these benchmarks are and how they actually translate to my day-to-day job, but I will say that every time they release a new model and they say it's better with these benchmarks, I notice that it's actually better in terms of like it coding. So this is awesome, but unfortunately we don't have access to this. It's only a select subset of these big companies like AWS and Apple who have access to this, who are able to actually start using it for their security efforts to try to defend their own systems, which I think is great. I think they make some good points of like having a model that's this powerful and just unleashing it to the internet is probably not a good idea, because there's probably tons of people who would use it to try to exploit existing systems if it's that good at finding security vulnerabilities. For example, I mean, I would probably use it to find ways to exploit RuneScape to give myself as much gold as possible, but I don't have access to it because I'm a normie. Now, one thing they're not really saying about this model is how much faster or slower it is than the existing Opus 4.6, because that could be a really big impact on like, okay, even though it's doing really great at these, if it takes 2 or 3 times longer to actually get to that percentage point, to me, it's not really usable. Like, this model might not even be usable, but using it in a background agent to just do security analysis on your existing code base is probably something that you'd want to do anyway, right? So I think having access to this model is probably very good eventually whenever it comes out, but I would love to be able to try it to see how well it actually is. Now, in terms of the implications of this, I mean, I think there's some pros and some cons. Honestly, whenever a model comes out that's really powerful, especially when they talk about security, it's good that we have models that can help us defend our systems, because now in this day and age, I mean, the moment you publish an application to an actual live API, there's a high chance that there's already a bot out there just trying to find exploits and hitting your API endpoints, trying to find like, are you using PHP? Are you using Node.js? And it's good to have some type of models that are really good at security to help you prevent pushing code that has exploits to it to production. But on the flip side of things, if this actually got into the wrong hands and people wanted to actually start using it, they could probably do a lot of damage to existing software systems and even just foreign governments. But you think about it, if you have enough money and enough power and resources, you could basically spin up a data center that has these models running in it that can just basically try to exploit various other applications from like foreign governments. So I do think that, at some point, I think someone's going to be knocking on the door requiring access to this model so they can use it. Because really all it takes is you pushing the wrong code once to production, and these bots are basically traversing your application trying to find exploits. Now, honestly, I don't know what else I could really talk about in terms of this model. I don't have access to it. I don't know if anyone else who has access to it, unless you work at one of these big companies. And honestly, this could just be a giant marketing ploy to get you really excited about a model. And, that's stuff that these companies always do, but they do have a giant, like 224-page paper talking about the research on it. So I'm guessing it's probably true that it is a very good model, but I need to kind of watch some other videos. I think Theo published one recently. I'm going to go ahead and like watch that one. I think my final takeaway of this video, if you're watching this and you're in the software engineering industry, is you should probably be using these models to always look for security vulnerabilities. Like, that should be the number one thing you should be doing on all your pull requests. You should be using some type of automated code reviewer tool. Like, there's CodeRabbit, there's GitHub Copilot, even having a couple of those like Gemini Code Review, just to make sure that you're not accidentally shipping something wrong. Because, I mean, like I said, we're reaching the day and age where the moment you get something into production, it could take 5 seconds before a bot's already trying to infiltrate what you have. And unless you have the right infrastructure set up to monitor and log that type of stuff. You're not going to know when someone actually has access to your system until they decide one day they want to do something malicious with it. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm going to give a quick overview of it to ride the hype of the new model and get some views. But if you guys have any comments or questions about this, let me know. Have a good day and happy coding.